Hi, it's James again, the Sydney Tech Geek, and I'm here with another video. And today we're going to talk about, let's put it on the screen, custom pre-show creation workflow for cinema. So why are we talking about that today? So, we're in a crisis. We need to be a bit more, disruptive in how we're going to approach making our cinema different, making it stand out. So today I wanted to talk about making your own pre-show, or customizing your pre-show to make it more engaging, to put a little bit of your own spin on it, to make it a point of difference, bring back some showmanship, maybe, things that can enhance the way you show your content on your screen, and also potentially giving you the capabilities of making your own ads for local cinema, especially in the regional areas where the bigger advertising companies very rarely go, because it's very hard to send out salespeople to those areas. So do it yourself, make the content yourself, make the money. There's some money to be made, especially when the crisis comes, when the crisis is over a bit. I think there's a lot of potential for those sort of skills to go a long way. So let's talk about that. So let's go back to the video. So here we go. Now, overview of the presentation. Just put my head up there so you can see me. Pre-show is a time to shine. Let's get into that. Opportunities, local promotion, advertising, revenue. Things we can look into by taking on these skill sets. Not hard. Tools for the job. I'm going to go through some tools I recommend for doing this sort of work and other aspects. DCP creation advice, like there's different ways of making DCPs, and I just wanted to tell you the paths that I think, the recommended paths that from my perspective, and we'll just go through a conclusion. Anyway, let's keep going. So pre-show is a time to shine. It's an opportunity to offer a point of difference. And I think it's a big deal, because a point of difference is partly, showmanship wise. You go to a cinema that has there's some cinemas which have a very ornate cinema, for example. That's a bit of showmanship, or they may have some very localized, very custom pre-show content, which really brings in the fact that it is a community around the cinema. I think those are very important aspects, and one of the reasons why I recommend you learning these skill sets going forward. We're going through a crisis, so I think we need to try harder. We need to do better. It's never easy in a crisis sort of situation, especially the one we're in at the moment. So these are sort of some options that you may want to take on board to potentially help you through the crisis and other bits and pieces. But in general, even without the crisis, there's a lot of good ideas here that could potentially lift your game and lift your profitability as a cinema. Also, I like to, I like communities. I'm a very big believer in small cinema and communities, and some things you can probably feed on is local community production. Maybe some schools making some stuff for you, or working with schools, other things like that to enhance your connection with the community. So some other interesting ideas. So yeah, we'll go through here. Local promotions going a long way. Direct advertising of opening closing dates. So one of the things that I especially see in some of the country sites is they like to, because country areas don't always open at the same times as the major cities for a number of different reasons, it's common for some locations to actually take a lot of the pre-show and actually add copy to it saying, coming soon. Instead of coming soon, it'll actually say the exact date it's going to open in your region, to make it more suitable to the community that you're in. So those are the sort of things that you can do that really enhance your pre-show. Obviously, you can also make your own concession deals and advertising for yourself much easier if you've got some of these skills, rather than having to go outside and do them. That's another plus of doing this. Self-promotion is always good. Local advertising community. So promoting small business is a big part of being in a community, supporting the community, making the community work as one. And I think that's a good thing to try and leverage into these sort of crisis situations, because it's community which carries us through the crisis. any sort of crisis that we can be in. So I'm a big believer in supporting those sort of movements and that sort of activity, and something you should keep an eye on. Again, saying don't rely on the larger advertising companies to come through to your region, especially in this situation. Advertising may be down for quite a while as this recession goes through, but it'll come back. It always does, and you can pretty much make some better opportunities if you have this skill set and sort of open yourself to doing this. Like I'm very much of the belief, like you may take half a day a week, and you may use that half a day a week to go outside and to potentially talk to the community and get some local businesses to pay for some advertising on your screen. So there's an opportunity there. Now, really comes down to the tools for the job. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Do you know how to use the tools to make the ads and other bits and pieces? Do you want to learn them? Well, there's maybe you might do it. You may get a staff member to do it, or there might be someone that or family member who may want to help out. Those are all the sort of opportunities. But the truth is, it's never been easier. The tools are better than ever. You can start with even tablets and etc. Some tools on the tablets are amazing in terms of just building slides and some other bits and pieces that you may want to export and then create into an ad. Even creating the full video on the iPads and those tablet devices is very, very possible in this day. So start somewhere, start slow. The main thing is that it's very easy, and there's a few tools like the main tool that's really opened the world to us. And I know a lot of exhibitors are already using this, especially small ones, is DCPomatic. It's a little bit complex to use, but there's quite a few. Like if I jump to the I'll go back here, escape DCPomatic, you'll see the website here. There's videos and lots of how-tos on the website, and also on YouTube you'll find other information of how to do that. And it's really not hard at all. The only other thing I'd say about DCPomatic is it's a little bit slow because it uses some open source J2K encoders, which are not as high quality or as speedy as the commercial ones, but it does an amazing job, and it has improved considerably, and I'd say it's pretty much on par with even some of the commercial ones today. So that's good to know. Anyway, let's get back to the presentation. So where are tools for the job? We were here. Now we're talking about DaVinci Resolve. That's pretty much a tool which is used by even a lot of filmmakers for finishing their film. It's a bit like driving the space shuttle, but you don't really have to know what every button does. And there's lots of videos, etc., to allow you to drive through it and get it done to do what you need to do. And you can also jump up to the capabilities of the extra capabilities if you need to at a later time. It has everything there, but just knowing the basic tools, the steering, where to turn it on and off, how to export to a DCP, and you're pretty much there to go. Now I'm a big fan of DC Resolve because it's much faster. It's literally 8 to 10 times faster than DCPomatic to export a tool. But we'll get into it a little bit more when I describe it with some other tools later in the video. Tools for the job, again, we're going back to there is nothing wrong with an iPad to make some content. The biggest issue is you need to export it to the computer, because the computer is where DCPomatic is, or whatever other tool that you may use like Resolve to create a DCP. Right, but that's not that difficult. You just need to get that working quite well, and anything you can make on the tablet. And there are some amazing tools with the fonts, and just laying things out is so much easier on the tablet. It's much more user-friendly and tactile in the way it works. Maybe again, it's probably somewhere you may want to start. My kids have made tons of amazing videos on their tablet, so imagine what can be done. Computer-based tools are also very affordable. Now, DaVinci Resolve has a free version. The free version you can pretty much do anything, but you can't export to a DCP. You could use Resolve to do your editing and do the other heavier lifting if you want to go through that path, and then go to DCPomatic. or you can pay it's quite a trivial cost, like $400 to $500 to get a full-time, a lifetime license of that going forward. Otherwise, you have to export to DCP-O-Matic and import that into the software and go through the workflow for making that as well. Either way, there's quite a bit of documentation on either of the software that walks you through a step-by-step on how to fill out this individual bits of information to create the DCP, because there is a bit of kerfuffle about making that naming convention, etc., and there's tools in these software to help you do that. Again, at the bottom, YouTube is your friend. There's thousands of teaching videos, etc., walkthroughs on how to do a lot of these things. And so, it may take a bit while to few tests and some dry runs of doing it yourself, going into your cinema and looking at how the result looks on screen. And I think that's a really good idea that you can do that, because looking at something on screen is very different than looking at it under the screen. And I advise, if you are jumping into this too, do that a few times and grab some, grab some experience before you really jump totally into doing this sort of work. I went back, so again, expensive. Let's just go back. I wanted to talk specifically about the iPad here, and don't excuse it or exclude it from a potential for starting to learn how to make some slides or some other local content that you may put on the screen, such as building a concessions promotion ad and all those sort of things, taking pictures, cutting things out, putting in the thing, putting the costs and stuff, and then exporting that to make a video for your pre-show. It's not that difficult, and let's keep going. Now for the computer, so if you're making pre-show stuff, it's usually video, so editing software is required, right? So there's a number of free editing tools, and there's also lots of recommendations. You can get a lot of videos from people who have recommendations of different video editing tools for different price mark brackets, and even free ones. Again, I'm a big supporter of Resolve. I do not support the use of Adobe Photoshop Premiere because it's just too expensive for what it is. The free tools do get you there, and that's what I'd suggest you go down the path. The free tools have become so much better, or the inexpensive tools. Resolve, the Adobe suite is just getting a little bit too expensive, $700 a year, compared to, for example, Resolve is a once-off $400 to $500 cost, and that's for the life of the product. I myself I have a couple of versions of it, because I bought one and I got another one with a camera which I'm shooting on right now. I do Blackmagic Cinema camera that I'm shooting and looking into right now. So that's why I do recommend those tools, but there are other tools as well out there that may be more suited, something a little bit more simpler, maybe more suited to you, as Resolve can do everything, but it does have a lot of bells and whistles, and you have to sort of figure out what buttons are useful to you and which buttons to ignore, because it is a little bit of a do everything sort of tool. So did I miss something there? Did I? DCP-O-Matic is a Swiss Army knife for DCP creation. It's really where most of the industry goes for doing pre-show at this time, and that's learning that. Like I said, the website I showed before, it's not difficult to do the conversion through that software. Image manipulation is an important skill. A number of free image editing tools exist, but GIMP pretty much is the go-to tool. It's free, open source, it's on all platforms. But there are other tools, slightly paid-for tools, which do have better tool sets that specifically are better at vectorizing and other bits and pieces. But GIMP does do a good job. And there's also some tablet tools which are really good at that too, that do have minimal costs involved for getting them, like $20, $50. It's really not a lot of money. But again, on the computer, there are tools that price range as well. And there's thousands of videos on the internet to show you how to use those tools. Tools. I want to talk about DaVinci Resolve specifically here. So you can get a free version of it. It's actually commonly used for mastering a lot of films, independent films, because it is that good. But it is also a tool, like I said before, you're driving a bus or you're driving the space shuttle or a jumbo jet. There's some complexities in there, but you don't really need to know what all the buttons do just to get the tool to actually get to where you want to go. So that's, I know it can be scared when there's all these, scary when there's all these buttons you don't know where they are. But in my book is that, you just give it a go. Try, as long as you get the result you want, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. Now, another good tool, or reason I wanted to mention DaVinci Resolve is because DaVinci Resolve can basically, you can drag in a DCP like any other bit of video file, and it's commonly seen, I see in a lot of regional areas where they will take a trailer and they will add localized copy. Instead of coming soon, they may add underneath that coming to the specific date at that specific cinema, or other information that is important to the local community into the DCP. And it is dead easy to do that with the DaVinci Resolve. You can just drag the DCP in, do an edit, and render it out again, and the quality will be maintained, because the quality of Resolve and its DCP creation and import is just as good as it gets. So that's a really good reason why I recommend DaVinci Resolve, because it gives you those capabilities to manipulate your pre-show and keeping the quality and the best quality there for the pre-show. Anyway, let's keep going. Now, DCP creation advice. Like, there's lots of ways. I've mentioned DCP-O-Matic here in Resolve, but there are many other tools that you can use, high-end tools and some other inexpensive tools that you can purchase that aren't too expensive, like in the hundreds of dollars. To a degree, that's why I sort of advise on DaVinci Resolve, because it will make the tools you need, but it's pretty much, you get, if you're going to buy a DCP encoding software, you get that in DaVinci Resolve, and you get a whole editing system with it. That's why I'm a big fan of it. And DCP-O-Matic, again, big reason you need this as a must-have is because it has a DCP player in it as well. So it's reasonably new to the product, but now you can use DCP-O-Matic with its DCP player capabilities to look at trailers and ads on your computer without having to kick up a DCI projector. You can kind of do that in Resolve as well, because you can import the content into your timelines, and it does a very good job of doing that as well, and sometimes it does play better, but the DCP-O-Matic tries to emulate the whole DCP aspect of it, and also captioning and other bits and pieces can be looked at if you need to do so. So that's one of the reasons why both tools in my book are a must-have. So let's keep going. Conclusion. Right? Conclusion. In these times of crisis, we need to do more with less. Right? Adding some showmanship, point of difference, access to potential local advertising revenue. We're doing more with less. I know you have to stretch your legs and maybe want to have to do things you haven't had to do for a long time or don't want to do, but it's a crisis. We need to be a bit more flexible. So I wanted to put these ideas on the table and in your heads as a cinema exhibitor, because this may be the difference between surviving and not surviving this crisis. And I want us to survive it for every chance we can get. Cinema will be just as good, as great as it was after the crisis. Before the crisis is after the crisis. We just have to get through this, and it'll be all great again. But we need to support ourselves and our communities to do so. So I'm focusing on making some videos. Let me look at you up close. I'll just put this in. I am focusing on making these videos to help you make better decisions to carry you through these difficult times. Good luck, best of luck. It'll come back, but it may be a difficult time between now and when the vaccine arrives, because it will be difficult until we feel safe to move around like we did before the crisis. So good luck. Take on this information. It's time to think out of the square, be different, be disruptive, and I'll see you next time. This is James Gardner, the Senior Tech Geek. Bye for now.